Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I've been working at this fancy tech company for about 5 years now. It's a good gig, pays well, but man, some days the stress just gets to you. Today was one of those days. I woke up late, spilled coffee on my favorite shirt, and barely made it to the office on time. By lunch, I had fixed 3 major bugs and sat through 2 mind-numbing meetings. My head was pounding, and all I wanted was a moment of peace. I decided to take a quick break and grab a coffee from the cafe on the ground floor. Our office is on the 26th floor, so I headed to the elevator hoping for a quiet ride down. As soon as the doors opened, I knew I was in for a treat. There was this guy, suit and tie, talking on his phone. But get this, he wasn't just talking. He had his phone on speaker, blasting his conversation for the whole world to hear. I stepped in, thinking maybe he'd had the decency to switch to a normal call. Nope. As the doors closed, he kept right on yapping away. Now, I'm usually a pretty chill guy, but like I said, it had been a rough day. And this dude's loud conversation was the last straw, so I decided to fight fire with fire. I pulled out my phone, opened up my music app and scrolled to one of my favorite songs, Walk by Pantera. It's a heavy metal classic, perfect for drowning out annoying people. Without warning, I hit play at full volume. The guitar riffs exploded through my phone speakers, filling the elevator with glorious noise. This guy's eyes went wide and he actually stopped talking for a second. Then he turned to me, all red-faced and huffy. "Hey, what's your problem? Turn that down." "Oh, I'm sorry. Is my music bothering you?" "Of course it is. I'm trying to have a conversation here." "Funny, I was just thinking the same thing about your phone call. How about this? You put your phone to your ear like a normal person, and I'll turn off my music. Deal?" "That's ridiculous. I need to use speakerphone for this call, and I need to listen to Pantera. Guess we're at an impasse." "You're being completely unreasonable." "Am I? I'd say my music is about as annoying as your conversation. Maybe even less so, since it's actually good." By this point, we were almost at the ground floor, and the guy was fuming, practically shaking with anger. "You're an absolute jerk. You know that?" Here was this grown man throwing a tantrum because someone dared to disturb his precious speakerphone call. "Cool, man. Thanks for the compliment." The elevator doors opened and I strolled out. Pantera still blasting from my phone. As I walked away, I could hear him muttering curses under his breath. I gotta say it felt pretty good. Maybe it wasn't the most mature thing to do, but sometimes you just gotta stand up to these entitled types. They think that the whole world revolves around them, that their convenience trumps everyone else's comfort. I imagined him trying to explain to whoever was on the other end of that call why there was subtly heavy metal blasting in the background. The funny thing is I headed back up to my office. I felt so much better. All the stress from earlier in the day had melted away. Sometimes, a little pity revenge is what you need to turn your day around. When I got back to my desk, I put on my headphones and queued up some more Pantera. As I dove back into my coat, I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. Let that be a lesson to speakerphone guy. You never know when you might run into someone who's had enough of your nonsense. And you know what? If I see him again, I might just have to introduce him to some more of my playlist. After all, everyone could use a little more metal in their life, right? It was supposed to be a perfect day out with my son. We've been cooped up in a house for weeks. Well, it was a rainy season and all, and I promised him we'd go to the park as soon as the weather cleared up. Well, today was that day, and I was determined to make the most of it. I'm a single dad. Have been for the past 3 years since my wife passed away. It's been tough, but my little boy keeps me going. He's 6 now, full of energy and curiosity. I work from home as a graphic designer, which allows me to spend more time with him. But it also means we don't get out as much as we probably should. So when I saw the sun peeking through the curtains this morning, I knew it was time to make good on my promise. I made us a quick breakfast, packed up some snacks and water, and got our electric scooter out of the garage. It's not much, but it gets us around the neighborhood, and my son loves it. He thinks it's the coolest thing ever, especially when I let him drive by holding onto the handlebars while I control the speed. We set off around 10 a.m., my son sitting in front of me on the scooter, chattering away about all the things he wanted to do at the park. The ride there was uneventful, just a nice cruise through our suburban streets. The park's only about a mile from our house, but it's got this massive parking lot that's always busy on nice days like this. As we approached the parking lot, I could see it was already filling up. Families were streaming in, kids running ahead of their parents, everybody eager to enjoy the sunshine. I slowed down as we entered the lot, keeping an eye out for any free spots where I could park our scooter. That's when I first noticed her. A shiny SUV way too big for city driving. It was crawling along behind us. I could see the driver in my peripheral vision, a woman with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, her red-painted lips pursed in annoyance. I didn't think much of it at first, figuring she was just looking for a parking spot like everyone else. I spotted an open space a few rows down and started to head towards it, still going slow because, well, it was a busy parking lot, and safety first, right? Especially with my son on board. But apparently I wasn't moving fast enough for the SUV lady. She started honking her horn, short angry beeps that made my son jump. I looked back and saw her waving her hand at me, gesturing for me to move faster or get out of the way. I shook my head and turned back to focus on navigating to the open spot. And that's when things went from bad to worse. As I was about to turn into the parking space, another car swooped in from the other direction and took it. I let out a sigh of frustration but figured we'd just have to keep looking. The woman in the SUV behind us apparently saw this as a personal affront. Her horn blaring became one long, continuous noise that echoed through the parking lot. I could hear her engine revving. My son asks me, "Dad, why is that lady so angry?" "I don't know, buddy. Some people just get upset easily. Don't worry about it." I tried to reassure him, but I was starting to get a bad feeling about the situation. I decided to pull over to the side to let her pass. But before I could, I felt a sudden hard impact from behind. The next few seconds were a blur. Our scooter lurched forward, tipping over. I instinctively wrapped my arms around my son as we fell, trying to shield him from the impact. We hit the asphalt hard, skidding a few feet before coming to a stop. For a moment, everything was quiet except for the ringing in my ears. Then I heard my son start to cry and the world came rushing back into focus. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "My arms hurt, Daddy. What happened?" I could see he had some nasty scrapes on his arm and leg, and I felt a throbbing pain in my shoulder and hip where I'd hit the ground. But we were alive and nothing seemed broken. That's when the rage set in. I looked up to see the SUV had stopped a few feet away. The driver's door opened and out stepped a woman, still wearing those ridiculous sunglasses. She was shouting before her feet even hit the ground. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You made me miss my spot. Do you have any idea how long I've been driving around this godforsaken lot?" This woman had just hit us with her car and she was yelling at us. "Are you insane? You just ran us over. We could have been killed." "Oh please, I barely tapped you. If you hadn't been going so slow, this wouldn't have happened. You should watch where you're going." By this point, the crowd had started to gather. People were rushing over to help us up, asking if we were okay, if we needed an ambulance, and I could hear someone on the phone with 911 describing what had happened. A middle-aged man who'd been walking his dog nearby approached the woman, his face red with anger. "Lady, what the hell is wrong with you? You just hit a man and his kid with your car. Mind your own business. This is between me and them. They shouldn't have been in my way." Woman bystander, "Your way? This is a parking lot, not your personal driveway. Do you know who I am? My husband's a lawyer, and he'll sue all of you for harassment." She started to move back towards her car, but a group of bystanders quickly surrounded her, blocking her path. "Oh no you don't. You're staying right here until the police arrive." "Get out of my way. This is kidnapping. I'll have you all arrested." She tried to push past them, but they stood firm. I could see the panic starting to sit in on her face as she realized she wasn't going to be able to just drive away from this. Meanwhile, I was focused on my son. A kind woman who said she was a nurse was looking at his scrapes, assuring me that they didn't look too serious, but that we should still get checked out at the hospital. My own injuries were starting to make themselves known. My shoulder felt like it was on fire, and I was pretty sure I'd have some impressive bruises tomorrow. It wasn't long before we heard sirens approaching. Two police cars and an ambulance pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. The paramedics came over to us first, starting to assess our injuries. As they were checking us over, I could hear the police talking to the witnesses and then approaching the woman. Her demeanor had changed completely. Gone was the aggressive, entitled attitude. Now she was all tears and apologies. Officers, there has been a terrible misunderstanding. I would never intentionally hurt anyone, especially not a child. It was an accident. Police Officer 1, ma'am, we've got multiple witnesses saying you deliberately hit these people with your vehicle after a dispute over a parking space. That's not an accident. That's assault with a deadly weapon. No, you don't understand. They were in my way. I was just trying to… Police Officer number 2 says, to what? Run them over for inconveniencing you? Man, please turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest. As they were handcuffing her, she started wailing, begging them not to take her to jail, saying she had kids at home who needed her. The irony of her suddenly caring about children wasn't lost on me or the crowd. Please, he can't do this. Don't you know who my husband is? He's a very important lawyer. Ma'am, I don't care if your husband is a president. He committed a serious crime and you're going to face the consequences. They led her away to one of the police cars, reading her rights as she continued to sob and plead. The other officer came over to where the paramedics were treating us. Sir, how are you and your son doing? Are you able to give a statement or do you need to go to the hospital first? I think we're okay to talk. They say it's mostly scrapes and bruises, but they want us to get checked out just in case. I gave him a rundown of what had happened, my son chiming in occasionally with his perspective. The officer took detailed notes, assuring us that with all the witnesses and evidence, the woman would be facing serious charges. Police Officer 2 says, we'll need you to come down to the station later to give a formal statement. But for now, please go get yourselves checked out at the hospital. We'll be in touch about next steps. As they were loading us into the ambulance, I saw them towing away the woman's SUV. A small part of me felt satisfied seeing her precious vehicle being hauled off, but mostly I was just relieved that my son and I were okay. The trips to the hospital were quick. They did x-rays and checked us for concussions. But thankfully, we'd escaped with just some nasty bruises and scrapes. The doctor said we were lucky, could have been much worse. While we were there, one of the officers from the scene came by to give us an update. Apparently, the woman, whose name I still didn't know and didn't care to learn, had a history of road rage incidents. This wasn't her first run-in with the law, but it would likely be her last taste of freedom for a while. The officer assured us that with the evidence they had, she'd be facing serious jail time. As we were getting ready to leave the hospital, my son looked up at me with those big innocent eyes of his. Dad, can we still go to the park someday? I burst out laughing despite the ache in my ribs when I did so. Sure buddy, we'll go to the park, but maybe next time we'll walk. It wasn't a day out I planned, but as I hugged my son close, grateful that we were both okay, I realized something. In a weird way, that entitled woman had given us something valuable. Not just a story to tell, but a reminder of how precious our time together is, and how quickly things can change. As we headed home, I made a silent promise to myself and to my son we'd have many more park days in our future, and we'd appreciate every single one of them, and we'd invest in some better protective gear for our scooter rides. Life's too short to let entitled people ruin your day, but it's also too precious to take unnecessary risks. Sometimes it takes a crazy encounter to remind you of what really matters. A bit of background. I'm a 25-year-old woman living with my boyfriend and my dad in a cozy 3-bedroom house. My mom passed away a few years ago, and since then, my dad and I have been inseparable. When I started dating my boyfriend 2 years ago, it just made sense for him to move in with us. We're a tight-knit bunch, and our home is our sanctuary. So yesterday started like any other day. My boyfriend's niece, a sweet 10-year-old girl, wanted to hang out after school. No problem, right? My boyfriend dropped her off, saying either he or his sister will pick her up later. I had work at 6 p.m. and my boyfriend wouldn't be off until 8 p.m. But we figured it would be fine. I left for work and my dad got home around 7 p.m. He was just settling in for dinner when my boyfriend's sister showed up with her husband to pick up their daughter. But here's where things took a turn for the weird. They brought along an uncle. Not my boyfriend's uncle, mind you, just an uncle. Now, I wasn't there to witness it, but my dad filled me in later. The sister and her husband were in the living room, calling for their daughter. Normal enough. But this uncle, he decided our house was his personal tour route. Dad says, I heard some commotion in the living room, so I went to check, and that's when I saw them. Sister, thanks for having our daughter over. We're just here to pick her up. Dad, no problem at all. She's a delight. The uncle, nice place you've got there. Mind if I take a look around? Before my dad could even respond, this guy was off like a shot. He didn't stop at the living room. Oh no, that would have been too simple. He went through our entire house like he was a home inspector on a mission. Dad says, I didn't quite know what to do. I thought he was your boyfriend's uncle, so I didn't want to be rude. The uncle opening my bedroom door. Nice room. A bit small though, isn't it? He didn't stop there. He went into my personal bathroom, closet, even my dad's bedroom. Nothing was off limits to this guy. Uncle peering into my dad's room. You could use some new curtains in here, and maybe a fresh coat of paint. My dad, bless his heart, was too polite to say anything. He just stood there shocked as this stranger invaded our privacy. When I got home and heard about this, I was livid. I called my boyfriend immediately. Did you know your uncle was going to be there? The one who apparently thinks he's a real estate agent? Uncle? What uncle? The one who just gave himself a tour of our entire house, including my bedroom and bathroom? I'm not even close to any uncle like that. He must be some distant relative or something. I was fuming. This random old man had gone through my personal space, looked at my things and made comments about our home like he owned the place. The audacity, the disrespect. The next day I couldn't shake off my anger. I kept imagining this stranger rifling through my belongings, judging our home. It made my skin crawl. Dad, why didn't you stop him? I'm sorry, honey, I thought he was family. I didn't want to cause a scene. He's not family. He's nobody to us. I couldn't believe the nerve of this man. Who does that? Who walks into a stranger's home and acts like they are on some kind of home makeover show? I was so mad, I decided to take action. I called my boyfriend's sister. Hey, about that uncle who came with you yesterday. Oh, him? He's just a family friend. Why? A family friend who thought it was okay to inspect our entire house without permission? Oh, he's harmless. He's just curious about houses. He used to be in real estate. That doesn't give him the right to invade our privacy. Don't be so sensitive. It's not a big deal. But it was a big deal to me. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I asked for this uncle's contact information, claiming I wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding. Instead, I sent him a strongly worded message. Hello, this is the owner of the house you decided to inspect yesterday without permission. I want you to know that your behavior was completely unacceptable. You violated our privacy and made us feel uncomfortable in our own home. In the future, if you're invited to someone's house, please remember that you're a guest, not a home inspector. Your actions were rude and disrespectful, and I hope you'll think twice before doing something like this again. To my surprise, I got a response almost immediately. I am deeply sorry for my actions. I didn't realize how inappropriate my behavior was. It won't happen again. It wasn't much, but it was something. I felt a little better knowing I had stood up for myself and my family. You can bet that if I ever see that man again, he won't be setting foot in our house. Some people need to learn that being older doesn't give you the right to disrespect others' boundaries. Our home is our castle, and nobody gets to storm in without our permission.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.